Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's very nice to be here with BCI today. My name is Lorenzo Marchetti. I'm the head of public affairs for Everbridge. And today we are here to show you all one of our newest solution that is going to support your business continuity and your operational resilience. And to present it, we have a person that has more than 25 years of experience when it comes to business continuity and operational resilience. Person that has a very interesting background, and we are very lucky to have him to work with us at Everbridge. So let me introduce you to Andrew Witz, our Vice President for Business Continuity Solution. Andy, I leave the floor to you. If anyone has question that needs to be answered, please use the chat or the Q&A. I'll be here, but I won't be talking because I let the real experts speak. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to show you an overview of one of our solutions, which is designed to allow and assist you in your BC program to actually do your assessments, gather your data, produce business continuity plans, test those plans, also manage risks, and as well as also help you build a potential operational resilience program. Now, operational resilience is relatively newer compared to business continuity, but hopefully you'll be able to see a few things that will resonate with you. So just want to make sure I'm just changing my screen share. Lorenzo, could you please confirm, can everyone see the landing page of BC in the Cloud?
Yes, I can see it, so hopefully everyone can.
Thank you very much. So what we're looking at here is the landing page for BC in the Cloud. Now, I'm logged in as an administrator right now, so I can see all of the various different areas. So apologies, I may have to sneeze in just a moment. So down the left-hand side of the page, you'll see that we have areas on the home page for some of the areas where we want to see any action items, any user status, etc. I have assessments which is where I'm going to conduct any of my any of the assessments and data gathering I need to. Risks, where I manage risks. Plans, where I can build plans and build my recovery strategies. Exercises, where I can test my exercises and test my plans. Incidents, where I manage incidents. Resilience, where we can conduct operational resilience. Organizational data, where we put in all the data for our company and our organization, and then configuration, where we make any of the changes with the tool that we need to make things a little easier for ourselves. Now, BC in the Cloud is built on a low-code platform, so we do allow you to make a lot of configuration changes in order to meet your needs. Not every organization is the same, and what's good for a financial organization may not necessarily align with a pharmaceutical organization. So we do allow you to make a lot of changes with the tool in order to configure it to meet your needs. One of the first things we do when we're working with organizations is we build out their organizational structure. And their organizational structure comes in the form of the different departments and divisions that make up the organization. And as you can see, this I can go ahead and add in, I can even color code certain departments if I want to. And I can see all of the various different entities. I can also see how these entities look in a map and in a flow chart, so I can see the flow of how we're organized. Now, this is particularly useful because this allows me to see not only how we're organized, but all of the various different departments and divisions that are responsible for business continuity or need to have a plan or assessment in place. And this isn't just a flat diagram. I can click on any of these links and it's going to show me the aggregate of that information. So if I need to see a particular organization, and I'm going to pick one that has a little bit more data in it, I can pick on an organization and I can see what are the assessments that I have within this particular business entity? Where are the plans? Are there any child entities? What specific job titles and roles do we have within the organization? How many employees do we have within this business unit? What critical processes are conducted in this particular organization, in this particular part of the organization? Where are we located? Now, all of this information is aggregated information that we assemble when we're doing an assessment. none of this, if those of you who have ever had to do, and trust me, I've been a practitioner, so I know this pain, but if you've ever had to do things in just Word or Excel, one of the problems of doing that, it's very, very hard to see the related records and how things tie together. So using a relational database allows me to align information so that people are entering and connecting to the right record rather than just type in text in a field. Now, part of this is loading a lot of your data in. So once we load our data in, whether it's location data, and locations can also be displayed on a map, and our map goes down to quite a detailed area where you can go down to not only down to you can see your location, but we can even go down to street level as well if you need to as well. You can load in your employees. We can set up connectors, or we can set up a feed to feed your employee data and also your application data into the tool. Now, let's really get to the heart of things, because that's why you're here and that's why you're looking at things. You need to actually conduct either a BIA, a plan, or you need to actually configure your system so that you can see and do some of the things that we need to do to manage a program. So if we go to assessments, you'll see that we have not just one BIA, but we do also align with a lot of BCI best practices where we can do a product and service BIA as well as a process BIA. These BIAs are configurable and you can create your own assessments. So let's start with just simple process BIA. When we go into a BIA, we can create a BIA and align these BIAs to the different business entities that you just saw. So we can choose which particular entity it belongs to, and it'll automatically add in the processes that belong to that department. So we don't have to manually select and add these processes. When I go into a BIA, I can see the processes that belong to that particular department. And you can see this is in progress right now. There are three core areas of doing a BIA: doing our impact assessment, assessing our dependencies, and also adding the resources that we need. So let's take a look at adding an impact. The impact assessments that we see allow us to actually go through a number of various different categories. And for those of you who have ever done a BIA or are doing a BIA, you know that we have financial, we have operational, we have regulatory, we have reputation. All of these are configurable. So we provide you with a list, but you can change any one of these or add your own, remove some. It's all configurable. The timing intervals are configurable, so you can change which timing intervals you want. And even the answers that we put in place are also configurable. So you can choose what you want these differentiators and these descriptors of your different levels. You can simply have it as being low, medium, high, critical if you want. But if you actually want to put in some context, and for those of you who have ever had to try to get a user to add and put in a BIA, you'll know that it's very hard for them to quantify just on low, medium, high, because what exactly is high? But this allows you to put in some context where we can say, okay, well, how much revenue, what is the revenue, or how much is the revenue is too much? What exactly would be the interruption and the damage to customer experience? And when you select any of these, it'll automatically fill in for the rest of the timing categories, because obviously it's not going to go lower after 24 hours. So it allows you to go ahead and put in your various different impacts. And based on the way that you answer these impact categories, the system will automatically calculate and recommend an MTPD and an RTO. The RTO being a subset of the MTPD. The MTPDs, this is how much time you have, and the RTO, we want to aim to recover in slightly less time. How much that gap is configurable by you, so you can change what you want that gap to be. In the dependencies, we are going to go ahead and determine what do we depend on. And there's a variety of different dependencies we may need to assess. So for example, there could be processes that we depend on, that depend on us. Downstream means it depends on us. Upstream means we depend on it. So billing maybe require us to be able to do our tickets before we can do billing. Downstream products and services. Upstream applications means these are applications we depend on. And for those of you who have ever done things manually, you know the pain of actually doing things manually where people write in a list of their applications. One person will call email, another person will call it Outlook, another person will call it MS Outlook. And it becomes very, very hard to aggregate that information. Whereas this way, you can actually provide a list of expected and accepted applications that IT have provided and load that into the system. So that way, everyone's on the same page and they're all using the correct term for the application. Upstream processes means these are processes that we depend on. And now remember, this is relational data. So if I select a process that I depend on as an upstream, when they log into their BIA, they will see me as a downstream. So it is connected data and it is all related to each other. In providers allows me to put in third parties. Now, we add in providers in multiple different places. I can put in a provider in general and put in, do I have an agreement in place? And then once I've finished my dependencies, I can then go into my resources and I can put in more specificity if I need to. So under resources, these tabs are also configurable where we can remove tabs or add certain tabs back in. Not all of them will apply to you. Not everyone is using raw materials. Manufacturing and pharmaceutical might be, financial may not be. Skilled resources would be certain job titles. Do I need certain analysts? Like how many accountants do I need to be able to do this job? Specialized equipment may be a list of equipment that we need to add. One of the things I always encourage with people with equipment is do not put in things like laptops and phones. Always stick to things that are hard to get hold of, hard to replace, or things that would really, really hurt if you lost, say, for example, a building, or maybe there's only one of or two of in the company. Maybe it's something that's been highly customized or custom built for the organization, and it would take a long time to replace or be on order. At the time of disaster is not when you want to start going through procurement. So what exactly is the resource that they're providing us? I can actually say maybe it's a 3D printer they're supplying us, and the one that we have is a big industrial one. It's not something that we can go ahead and just buy another one of. Is it a multi-source provider? Are there plenty of vendors out there that do this? Is there only one vendor that we have that we work with that provides this, but there are other vendors out there? Sole source indicating that they're the only vendor that does this. They're unique. We put in who the primary provider is, and then do we have an alternate? Now, for third-party services, we can also put in, if it's not related specifically to equipment, maybe it's a service or something else that they do. We can put in the same thing with regard to some specifics of third-party service. We can also put in vital records. Vital records is slightly an older concept. The whole industry and the whole world is getting away from microfiche and paper files. However, there are still needs where you may have the need for a paper file or contracts or certain records, in which case I'll need to know where it's located and what that is. Once we've completed all of these steps, the system will generate a PDF that we can then review and then see what our output looks like. So we can see our BIA in a reported format. And this format is changeable. You can actually add in your own information. Your logo would be here. And then we can see this is what the BIA would look like, and with all of our impact assessment and all of our information. Once we've completed this, we can follow an approval process and we can send an email to an approval. And we do have a portal that allows you to approve the BIA before you move on and step on to do the other thing. And then with the approval, when they do approve it, and I'll show you the portal in a little bit when we get into plans, the date that they approve it will update here, and with the expiration date automatically being next year's date. You can change the cadence of that, but then the expiration will be the following year by default. We do have a version history as well, where you can go through and see all previous versions of your BIA, which can come in handy if you need to track down information that you don't already have. Okay, so let's move on to plans. I'm going to temporarily skip over risk for now, but let's talk about plans.
And Andy, sorry to interrupt you. There is a question. Maybe we can answer it now.
Sure.
Good afternoon. My question is, if configuration on field is in hand of customer or is it under change request? Thank you.
Fields, you can change your own fields, but it would be an administrative function. So we do have the ability to change fields, but you can change it and then push to production. So you wouldn't necessarily go ahead and just make a change in production, but we enable you to do that yourself.
Thank you, Andy.
Speaking candidly, it would, if I were running the program, it would not annoy me if I had to ask permission or had to follow a process to change a field. So we do have a change request process, but we would aim that at larger scale things, but you do have the ability to create your own fields as well. Okay, so for plans, I can go ahead and create my own plan. And the system has a number of plan types, and these are templates. You can create your own templates. You can modify the templates that we have, and you can actually remove these, rename these. They're yours to use how you want to use them. We can create approval group, and notice that if I select a business continuity program, the system prompts me, see how the red asterisk is a required field, to add in my business processes. If I select an application recovery, it prompts me to add in my applications that I'm going to recover as part of this application recovery plan. So we do create a number of different plan types that you can go ahead and use. And as I said, you can create your own. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the plan would look like. Let me just refresh my screen here. I'm not creating a new plan right now. I'm just going to go ahead and open up one that's already done. So we're going to stick with the same plan that we used earlier, our customer service plan. This is the assessment that we just looked at, and this is the related plan to that. Here's the good thing. All of the information that you just built in the assessment gets inherited into the plan. So all of the data that you added isn't wasted, and we're not going to make you do it twice. That gets automatically inherited into the plan. But you're going to need to build some layers and some details on top of that. For example, some of these plans, some of these processes may require recovery strategies and tasks and steps of how you're going to recover it. You may need to add more resources to it. So I may need to add more information here. I may need to add in certain recovery strategies, and I'll come to recovery strategies in just a moment and explain how that works. But I'm going to also add teams. You can attach a team that's already there. I can edit this team. And the way that we work teams is that we allow you to add in not just a specific employee, but we also allow you to add in job titles. So for example, if I don't know who the specific people will be, but I know at least I need a minimum of 2 accountants or 3 analysts, I can go in and specify what those roles will be and then which job titles do I need. If I'm not working it that way, I can pick specific employees. I can put in my job role and I can say this is going to be the team leader, and who's going to be the primary employee. I can go ahead and select who my primary employee is and then who my alternate and who my standby employees are. Once I've built my teams, and you can create multiple roles within the team as well, I'm going to need to create some activation tasks. Now, these tasks these are the steps of what we'd need to follow. This is how we're going to activate the plan. When I create a task, I can add a number of different things. I can add in the estimated duration, who I'm assigning it to. I can put in my description. I can even add images if I want, and I can even attach a document if I need to. And this will automatically get brought into the plan. I can add in subtasks to those tasks. So if I want to, I can hit plus and add in a child task if I want to. And notice it says new child task. So I can create groups of tasks if I need to within this. Now, these are the activation tasks, but what if I have specifics of things that I need to do within certain scenarios? For example, the way that I'm going to recover may be different if I lose the location versus if I lose staffing. So this is where it comes to the area called recovery strategies. And I can create as many recovery strategies as I need. Now, these recovery strategies do have a function. They're not just flat records. These will tie in with exercises and incidents, which I'll show you later on. I can pick a certain loss scenario and I can say, well, for this scenario, I can add in, what would we do if we lose corporate headquarters? What would we do if we lose a certain building? Or I can say, well, what if we lose certain critical staffing? I can then decide, how do I want the tasks as part of this recovery strategy to work? Do I want them to be sequential or in parallel? Do I want them to be assigned, teams to be assigned to the phase within the recovery strategy, or the recovery strategy itself, or the tasks within the phase within the recovery strategy? I can choose how I want that to work. And then I can also say, are there certain business entities, locations, like if I pick a loss of location, which location am I referring to? Which resources am I referring to? Which third party am I referring to? So I can then tie this information together. When I go into work on this recovery strategy, I can then say, okay, here's the overall information, but then I can put in some general tasks of this is the steps of what we would do if we lose the critical vendor. Here's the benefit of this. If I'm activating a plan, I need to follow some general steps to activate the plan. Then I'm going to immediately jump to the page of the issue we're facing. I'm going to say, okay, we've lost a critical vendor. I don't need to go through pages and pages of tasks to try to figure out which ones are relevant and which ones aren't. This allows me to create a scenario and then pick that scenario. This scenario is then also going to tie in with our incident, because when we're creating an incident, we can choose, are we creating an incident based on the entire plan or with the scenario within a particular plan? So it allows me to put some specifics and some details in. As I mentioned before, we can create an approval group just as we did in our BIA. And when I create an approval group, I can create an approver. And here's the great part. The approver does not have to be a full user of the product. An approver can log in, and when we hit submit for approval, they will log into a portal. And their portal allows them to go into a plan and then see that plan. I can click on the plan version, I can see the PDF, and then I can either click to approve or reject it and add some comments and some fields to the fields here. Incidentally, the portal doubles as being particularly useful because it means I can assign any completed plan to users. You can actually take your entire user community or take your entire organization and make them a portal user without having to use BC in the cloud. We do not charge for the portal. So you can have unlimited portal users who can then go through and have access to read-only plans as they need to. Version history works the same as it does with BIA, where I can see all the previous versions of the file. You can see here's one that was rejected because there was some feedback and some comments there. And then some of these were approved. Most of these were approved. Report sections will show you this is literally the output in the table of contents. So if I want to add in a new contents, now remember I'm an admin right now, so an end user won't be able to do that, but I can go ahead and create new sections and I can add in areas here that I may want to edit and I want to add in some details, and I can see my plan overview data and all the information for that plan. This is coming from the template, but this is something that I can also edit if I need to make changes. I can add attachments if I need to, and these will print out with the plan. I can also create action items for the plan owner or plan editor and say, this needs to be updated. Please update these with new workarounds. Please test the plan for effectiveness with the new workarounds. So I can assign these action items to individual users. When they log in, they will see these action items assigned to them, and they can mark it in progress, completed, cancelled, or they can delegate it to somebody else as well. So different plans have different outputs. We can create and edit as many different plan types as we want, but now we need to test the plan. So how does that work? I can go in to create an exercise, and our exercises allow you to not only choose the activation type, and we have a number of different exercise types, and each one of these exercise types isn't just a pick list. Each one of these relates to a specific set of objectives, standardized, that you can modify and you can change and you can add content to the product. By default, it's creating me as the leader of this exercise, and then you can choose which components you want to add. And we can add by plan, so you can select the plans that we're planning on testing. But as I said to you before, with a loss scenario, I don't want to necessarily test the entirety of a plan. I may pick a certain loss scenario and say, well, if I pick the location, which location am I testing a loss scenario for? So instead of bringing the entire content of a plan in, I can bring in sections and just the components that I need for a certain loss scenario. This is particularly useful because this essentially is dynamic filtering. So you can take the parts of the contents of your plan, and add that into an exercise. Now, when I go into an exercise, and I'll go into one that I have open already, if I go into an exercise, I can see that I can put in what the scope of the exercise is, and this is a location-based, because this is loss of a call center. I can click on this and all of the different content and all of the recovery strategies and tasks automatically get compiled into my exercise. I can choose if certain sections are in scope or out of scope. Why would I need to do that? Well, because not every scenario within the plan may fit with the exercise we're doing. And also, we don't want to cause any harm or damage to the organization by doing a test. So we want to make sure that we're only doing things that are approved and okay to test during regular business hours. When I build this out, I also can add in activation objectives, and these activation objectives are the list of items that I mentioned as standard. So because this is a walkthrough, we just have a simple objective of walkthrough plan. And then if I look at my recovery objectives, these is the response and the answers as people are recovering the exercise. So I can see real time how people are completing, what was completed, what's ready to recover, what's in progress, what's currently blocked. This will become unblocked once this is completed. And then I can go through and either I can hit right here, select certain items and then move them to ready to recover or failed or in progress or completed. However, I can assign people in the portal. So our old friend, the portal, comes into use again, where I can go into an exercise. I can log into this exercise, into this particular strategy, and I can go through and edit these items that are assigned to me and mark them in progress or completed. And then I can also put in and report if there's any issues. Speaking of issues, going back to our exercise, we do have an area. Report sections is literally the output of the exercise. Attachments, we can attach any evidence or items we need to. Issues, where we can say, okay, here's an issue that we saw and we reported, we can add in and report an issue. Action items shows us a list of items that we need to, these are things that we need to complete, or things that lessons learned, things that I need to assign to somebody that they need to go fix. Now, once our exercise is completed, with each of these areas, we do have dashboards that you can review. These dashboards are configurable and we can add in more. In fact, we have so many dashboards, we also have areas where we can see different RTO gaps. We have dependency mapping. Now, our tool used to contain dependency maps where we would show processes and applications they depend on, hardware they depend on, but we had so many requests for different dependency map, we were trying to decide which ones to build. So instead of deciding to build one or two, we decided to build them all. So as you can see, everything that potentially has a relationship is available as a dependency. And I can select any situation where I can say, well, what if we lost a particular vendor? I could choose, if we lost this vendor, this is the application we would lose. These are the processes we would lose. And then this is the products and services that would be impacted. Now, I can even switch this around and see an upstream version of this. So for example, if I wanted to see from an upstream standpoint, if what does accounting depend on? I can look at it from a view where it's upstream, where it goes from right to left rather than left to right, where I can say where accounting depends on these sub entities, these processes, these applications, and I can see it all in one view. And I can actually click on any one of these and it'll bring up the information about that application or that record. I can also collapse certain areas of the tool as well, where I can collapse certain parts of the dependency if I need to as well. Let's talk about incidents. If I need to report an incident, I can go ahead and create a new incident. And the incidents, one of the things that's a little different about an incident and an exercise is that this is related to something that's happened rather than just testing what we have. Well, what does that also mean? It also means that if I'm testing something, what I'm dealing with may not necessarily be a disaster. It's an incident, but how do I assess whether or not it's escalated to that level? Well, if I open up in a particular incident, we have a tab here called assessment, where I can go into and I can assess the situation. And these questions are configurable, but I can go in and say, well, our customers being affected, what's the long-term effect? How's our data security? From a facilities, is there major damage? Are there safety concerns for the building? As I go through and answer these questions, in the back end, a score is developing where the system will recommend you need to declare a disaster. Once we declare a disaster, any of the content within the exercise or within the incident automatically gets sent to our portal users, and anyone who's they'll receive a notification and they can go through and start the recovery. As we go through our recovery objectives, just like we did in our exercise, we can go ahead and see all of the different components that we may need to recover as we check on and then mark them as complete. One difference is with incidents than exercises is that we also have the ability to add in expenses as well. Obviously, an exercise is an internal thing, but incidental expenses are things that we may need to add in a various different category and what the cost was, so that we can track it for later when we need to add it to our expensing tool, whatever we're using for that. As with all of them, there are dashboards that we can monitor. Incidentally, these dashboards are interactive. They're not just flat. I can click on any one of these, and if I say, okay, well, which BIAs need updating, I can click on it. It'll show me the list of what they are, and then I can go click on each of these to find out who the owner is, and follow up with them to say this needs to be done, this needs to be followed up. Now, we do have I can give you a preview on one of the areas that we are going to be releasing on operational resilience. The products and services that we do a BIA on will then feed into an area for impact tolerance assessments for operational resilience. Those of you who are doing operational resilience, I know it doesn't apply to all of you, it applies to those of you who are under FCA and PRA regulations. You will be able to do an impact tolerance assessment on your important business services, where we can go in and not just do an impact tolerance and begin your impact tolerance assessment, but you can also do scenario tests where we can create a scenario, test the impact tolerance, and then see if certain areas within those impact tolerances meet compliance or not. And I can actually review my scenario results and also do the assessment where I can answer the questions related to this. The system is highly configurable, as I mentioned before. So a lot of the things that you see, like the advanced peg list, I can go in and select an advanced peg list. You can create your own time intervals. You can create your own business entities, your own location types, your own resource types, etc. Under Design Studio, I can create and add my own logo. I can even change the background and the look and feel of the font color and all of the navigation bar, all the tables, and all the various different areas of the tool that I may want to change and add information and add various different areas of the product. I may want to change the look and feel. We also allow you to change the way that the formulas work. So, for example, I can change how I calculate my MTPD and my RTO. And also under module management, I can then change and add my own assessments. So one of the nice things here is that not everyone does a BIA the same way. All of you have different impact categories, different time intervals, and different ways you want to word your question. So to configure this, it's very, very easy for us to be able to go in and then select a particular question, and I can edit that question. And in that question, I can go through and I can say, how many questions do I want to add? What do I want the responses to be? What do I want the score to be? What do I want the colors to be for those responses? All of this is configurable. And this applies to all of the various different assessment types that you may or may not create. I can also create various different plan templates and edit these plan templates, where I can go through and create my own plan template. In the plan template, I can determine all kinds of things like, for example, what's the frequency of expiration? When do I want the reminders to go out? What kind of recovery strategy templates do I want to add as a default? What reports and the section templates, what report output do I want to have and create? Are there any out-of-box template attachments I want to add to each particular plan? And then here's the list of all of the plans that use this particular template. When you make changes to a template, you can push those changes to all plans using that template as well. Under module management, as I mentioned, we can also go in and then manage the exercise types, the incident types, and I can choose which assessment template I want to use for questions, where I can say, right, the assessment piece where we can look at all the various different questions we want to ask to assess the situation. This is all configurable.
Andy, we got two more questions if it is a good time.
So the question with regard to incident meetings, we do actually we'd still liaise with teams. One of the things that you would do, we don't want to replace or try to take away functionality that already is embedded with teams. What we typically do is that we have a field in incidents where you would put in the Teams link. And so when you create the incident, everyone can click on the link and then it opens up the Teams meeting. But then you would use this to scribe and mark all the various different components of the incident as you're conversing through Teams. The next question is, does the solution create a new BIA version when you change loss thresholds, or does it update all information by default without considering the changes? When you make changes, we don't automatically update. You would then choose, once you're finished with your changes, you can then push to update questions and any areas. Because as you make a change, if your change is incomplete, you may break something in the process. So we want you to be finished and completed with your changes, where you can then go in and then say, I want to refresh the report. So I want to refresh the report sections, refresh the resource and dependencies, or refresh the questions. And you can choose which particular BIAs you want to apply that to, which is a nice feature because it means you can make a change and then push that change to just the test BIA to make sure it's working correctly before you apply it to all of the BIAs. So you don't accidentally break everything if you've made a mistake or if you've done something incorrect. Maria, I hope that answers your question sufficiently. Please let me know if you have a further one.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. Under data management, we can manage our users. The system is role-based security, so we can create multiple roles. These roles are editable, where I can go into a role and then choose and determine the permissions. This is by no means the only area where we can control security. We can control field level security, record level, and also the actual features that a person has access to. Import data allows us to actually import into various different data categories if we want to. And we can also export and extract data and build our own ad hoc reports if we want to. I can create a report and then I can choose which particular data category I want to report on, what type of report I want to build. And then it's very nice because it means that I can go ahead and create any type of report or type of data that may not necessarily exist in the system yet. And I can click on any one of these and say, okay, well, if I want to create a report, here's one I created earlier. I can then see the processes and the applications that they depend on. I can edit this and add diagrams. I can edit and then choose what type of information I want to add to this. Do I want to add a chart to this? Are there any related records I want to add? How do I want to group and sort it, add totals, and then filter the report? That report can then also be, I can also export this report out to a CSV, Excel file, PDF, if I want to as well. And a number of categories as well. We do have automated emails and notifications built in to remind people that they need to update things, but you can also send ad hoc messages where I can hit send to, and I can go ahead and create who do I want to send a message to. You can see these are the assessment, and I can see in the two, it'll pick any of the email address or contact information I may want to add. I can say which particular fields do I want to use, like the owners of certain plans or approvers. I can choose out of all of these, who do I want to notify of anything. I think I see another question here as well. Actually, Maria, just to add to you did ask about, does it create a newer version? Whenever you make any changes, you're going to want to republish the BIA. So once you hit republish, it will create a new version and then it'll be in the version history. The data will change automatically, but you want to render a new PDF. And then also on impact assessment, I have a question from Mary saying, can it create a table of hierarchies? I'd like to know a bit more exactly what you mean. When you say hierarchies, do you mean processes and then the various different dependencies that are within there? That is automatic. If that's what you mean, and I'm assuming that is, if please add to the reports the question if that's not the case. Any of the details, that's already a report that's built in where I can see here's all the various different dependencies of things that I want to add and information that I want to add. That's already a report. If that's doesn't fit what you need, or if there's fields that you have added, we can also modify the reports. In fact, you can modify the reports. We do teach you how to do it as well. Yes, actually, the question to Patrick, you can include customers that would be impacted. One of the data categories that we do have under data, under organization data, if you look at companies, we do have clients as a category here that you can add and put in who are the clients that may be impacted. So that's just a tab that you would just switch on, and then you can say these are the major accounts that may be impacted if we couldn't deliver the processes. And Mary, to your question, any of the data can be sorted and changed. So whether it's in a report, our report actually does show the processes in order of RTO, but you can also change that to be MTPD. You can change it to be alphanumeric. You can actually create more than one report, and it's very common that in implementation, some customers have said, I want to see an application and all the processes in RTO order that are recovered, and then flip it around and then do a second report that say, show me the processes and then all of its dependencies and show the processes in RTO order. So it's a general yes. If there's a specific use case you have, I'd love to know, but in general, yes. Any of the reports and any of the data can be sorted in any particular order. It's essentially it's a view on the back end, and you just change which particular view you want to use. And the view, just like you saw in the report, you can change the sort order or the grouping order. We do have a mobile app as well, and you can actually see and test certain areas of the tool. So for example, if I wanted to see how this looked in a tablet format, I can go ahead and click tablet and see this is how it would look, or maybe in a phone format. You can turn off certain areas because obviously you've got very limited screen real estate on a phone, so you're not going to necessarily want to have every single function, but it is a wrapper for the tool. So pretty much anything that you can do in the app, you can do in the mobile app. One thing I didn't cover and didn't get to was risks. We do have the ability to compile a list of risks within the tool and also group these risks into different assessments. When I do an assess a risk, I can see I have two different areas where I can say, from the analysis standpoint, what's the impact to the organization, and then what's the likelihood that this risk will be realized. This is actually, there's a calculation behind this, and this calculation, and along with the financial impact, will give me what we call an inherent risk score. This is your inherent risk score. This is just the baseline risk score without any actions provided. Now, when I actually do my assessment, I can also determine what do I want to be a treatment. There may be certain things that are duplicates. There may be risks that really aren't a risk at all. A risk officer can go in and then choose to close those out because they're non-risks. But then those that are risks, I may need to choose what the treatment is. I can accept, avoid, exploit, reduce, or transfer. And depending on how I want to treat this particular risk, I can also relate this particular risk to certain related records. So all of the assets within the organization do tie in. So I can then assign this to certain critical processes, certain applications, certain locations. Which means when I'm actually doing my planning and I'm doing my my recovery strategies for planning, I can see how many risks have been assigned or identified for this process. So I know that I need to develop certain recovery strategies for these particular risks. Now, going back to my risks, once I have identified my risks and my treatment, I'm going to want to add in controls. So I have a control library that I can attach from, or I can rate these particular controls where I can say how effective these controls are. And the effectiveness of the control is going to affect how much the risk is reduced. That is also configurable. And then you'll see that this has reduced the risk down from a 6 down to a 4. So we're now within our risk appetite of what we want to be. So I think most of what I've covered, if most of the tool has been covered in this particular demo, though I do a deeper dive. If for those of you who are interested in seeing more, would like to know more, and do have further questions, please reach out to Lorenzo. His email was put in the chat. But this sort of brings us to the end of the demo part of the section. If any of you have any further questions, please put it in the chat, or please reach out to Lorenzo, and we'd be happy to help and happy to advise you.
I think Andy, we got one more question that we haven't answered. Are we able to include which customers or clients who would be impacted if we couldn't deliver our processes?
I did answer that one actually. That's
Sorry.
yes, we can. And as you can see under companies, we do have a an area for clients where you can add in your list of customers, and then you can associate those to a plan or a process or a particular area in the tool.
Then I guess that everything. Yeah, you're right. You said.
Yeah, I just don't have that tab turned on in this version, but I would go into, when we go into configuration, you can choose which particular tabs you want to have switched on. So you can see here I have all the various different active resources I can add and switch on whichever ones I want to add and which ones I want to configure. So I can go down here and then choose, okay, well, do I want to add more or remove some of these, etc. Lorenzo, would you mind adding the email address to the?
Just
Yep, there we
yep.
are. Thank you, sir. Okay. And for those of you who do have any questions, please reach out to Lorenzo. He'll be happy to facilitate or put you in touch with me. Thank you all for your time and your attention. Appreciate you joining the demo. If you do have any other questions, please reach out.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining the session. Thank you to BCI to organizing it. Again, as Andy said, if you have a question, please send us an email and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andy. Amazing work as usual, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all.
Bye.